My name is Evelyn Harper. I am 78 years old, and this is the story of how I disappeared from my own son's life the day he scheduled the moving van to take me to Willow Creek Manor. He stood in the doorway of the kitchen, arms folded, the way men do when they think they've already won. "Mom, it's happening Friday. The room is paid for. The papers are signed. You're going whether you like it or not." I was at the sink, washing the same coffee cup I'd washed for 43 years in that house. I didn't turn around. I didn't cry. I just kept scrubbing the rim. Slow circles, the way I used to scrub crayon off the walls when he was 5 and thought the hallway was his canvas. He waited for the tears. He waited for the begging. He waited for me to fall apart, the way I did the day we buried his father. But I gave him nothing, because if I opened my mouth, everything I had swallowed for 30 years would come pouring out like hot tar and burn us both. So I said nothing. He sighed the sigh of a man who is tired of carrying a burden he created himself. "Jesus, Mom, don't make this harder than it has to be." Then he left for work, the screen door slapping shut behind him, like it always did, like it had since 1987 when we hung it together, Robert and me, laughing because we couldn't get the springs right. I stood there until I heard his truck back out of the driveway. Then I dried my hands on the dish towel that still had tiny embroidered daisies on it, the one I made the year he started kindergarten. And I smiled, because the game had already begun. And this time, I was the only one who knew the rules. People think old women are fragile. They think we forget. They think we get confused, that our minds go soft like overripe peaches. But memory is the one thing that gets sharper when everything else dulls. I remember every single thing. I remember the night Caleb was born, in that very house. Home birth, middle of a Georgia ice storm, power out, Robert boiling water on a camp stove while I screamed that boy into the world. I remember the first time he said "Mama" and reached for me with those fat little hands. I remember the day he came home from 3rd grade crying because Tommy Ricketts said his lunch smelled funny. And I marched straight to that school and told that child's mother exactly what kind of woman raises a bully. I remember working double shifts at the phone company when Robert's heart started failing, hiding the bills so Caleb wouldn't worry. I remember paying for his braces, his cleats, his senior trip to Washington, D.C., his first car insurance even after he moved out, his wedding that I paid for when his daddy was already in the ground. I remember every dollar, every sleepless night, every prayer whispered over his bed when he had pneumonia at 7 and the fever wouldn't break. And I remember the day he stopped calling me Mom and started calling me Evelyn. It happened slowly, the way mold creeps up a wall you don't notice until half the room is black. First, it was the little digs. "You still driving that old Buick, Evelyn? Dangerous. You really need all these rooms? Waste of money. You should downsize before you fall and break a hip." Then came the visits that felt like inspections. He'd walk through the house touching things. My mother's china cabinet, the grandfather clock Robert restored the year before he died, the porch swing where we used to sit and count lightning bugs. He never asked if I was lonely. He only asked if I'd thought any more about selling. I always said the same thing. "This house isn't for sale, baby." And he'd smile that tight, patient smile that wasn't a smile at all. The day he brought the brochure for Willow Creek Manor, he laid it on the table like he was dealing a winning poker hand. beautiful grounds, private rooms, on-site nursing, activities director, memory care wing. He tapped that part twice. I took the liberty of putting down a deposit, he said. It's perfect. You'll love it. I looked at the glossy pictures of old people playing bingo and painting watercolor flowers, and I thought, that's where you put people when you're done with them. I didn't argue. I just said, let me pray on it. He rolled his eyes, because of course I would pray on it. Old Southern women always prey on things. Makes us predictable. That was his mistake. He thought predictability meant weakness. But predictability is camouflage. For 6 months, I played the part. I let him schedule doctor appointments for my own good. I let his wife, Ashley, rearrange my kitchen cabinets because the dishes were too high for me to reach safely. I let them take the car keys after I forgot where I parked at the Piggly Wiggly one time. I wore the same 3 dresses in rotation so they'd think I was losing interest in life. I stopped watering the front flower beds so they'd think I couldn't manage anymore. I even let Ashley find me staring at the TV when it wasn't turned on, just to sell the performance. And every night, after they left, I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and wrote down everything. Every bank account number, every deed, every insurance policy, the combination to the safe deposit box, the name of the lawyer in Charleston who still owed Robert a favor from 1998. I wrote down the exact location of the quitclaim deed Caleb tried to trick me into signing 2 Thanksgivings ago when he got me tipsy on peach wine. I poured most of it in the fern when he wasn't looking. I wrote down the name of the cousin in Montana who hated Caleb's guts because he never repaid the $8,000 loan for his failed food truck. I wrote down everything. And then I started moving money. Not a lot at once, just small bits. 400 here, 600 there, cash back at the grocery store, a check made out to cash at the credit union when I went with Dolores from church who still drove. I opened an account at a bank Caleb didn't know existed in a town 30 miles away under the name Evelyn Rose Harper. Rose was my maiden name, the one I hadn't used since 1969. I sold things too. Mama's silver, that Ashley always admired. So gaudy, but whatever. The antique sewing machine, the collection of first edition Nancy Drew books I'd saved for my granddaughter, who doesn't exist because Caleb and Ashley weren't ready for children. I sold them on Facebook Marketplace to strangers who paid cash and didn't ask questions. Every dollar went into the new account. Every receipt went into a Maxwell House can buried under the peonies in the backyard. And I waited. The moving day was set for the first Friday in October. Caleb texted me the week before. Movers coming at 9. I'll be there at 8 to help you pack the last things. Ashley's bringing boxes. Love you. I read it 3 times. Love you. He hadn't said those words to my face in 8 years. I texted back a thumbs up emoji. Old ladies use emojis. Makes us seem harmless. Thursday night, I cooked his favorite meal. Chicken and dumplings, cornbread, collards with ham hock, peach cobbler. Ashley stayed in the living room scrolling her phone the whole time. Caleb ate 2 plates and said, God, Mom, you still make the best dumplings. I smiled and said, family recipe. Be a shame when I'm too senile to remember it. He laughed. Actually laughed. Ashley rolled her eyes. After they left, I did the dishes, wiped down the counters, and left the kitchen exactly the way I'd kept it for 40 years. Then I went to my bedroom, pulled out the suitcase I'd hidden behind the winter coats since July, and packed. 1 dress for church, 2 for every day, my good wig, because chemo in '09 took most of my hair and it never grew back right, Robert's dog tags, the love letters he wrote me from Vietnam, the photo of Caleb at 6 months old laughing in a wash tub on the back porch, and the folder with every document I would ever need again. At 5:30 a.m., before the roosters even thought about crowing, I walked out the back door with that suitcase and a thermos of coffee.
Dolores was waiting at the end of the driveway in her ancient Cadillac, engine running, hazards blinking, like we were making a drug deal. We didn't speak until we hit the interstate. Then she reached over and squeezed my hand. "You ready, Evie?" I looked out the window at the sunrise, bleeding pink across the cotton fields. I was ready the day he called me Evelyn. We drove north, not to Montana, not to Charleston. We drove to a little blue house on the outskirts of Boone, North Carolina, that belonged to Dolores' sister-in-law, who'd passed the year before. Nobody knew about it, not even Caleb, because Dolores had hated his guts since the day he told her at Robert's funeral that her potato salad was too mustardy. The house smelled like lemon oil and wood smoke. There was a porch swing, a creek out back, a garden already put to bed for winter, but waiting for spring. I cried when I saw the kitchen, not because it was fancy, because it was mine, no one else's, for the first time in my life. Caleb got home from work that Friday at 6:15 p.m. The movers had come and gone. They found the house empty. Not robbed, not trashed, just empty. The furniture was there, the dishes were there, but every photograph, every Christmas ornament, every Afghan I crocheted during chemo treatments, gone. On the kitchen table sat one single item, a yellow legal pad. On the first page, in my handwriting, "Caleb, the house is paid for. The deed is in my name only. The new address is nowhere you will ever find. You wanted me gone. Be careful what you wish for. I took the soul of this house with me. Everything else is just wood and nails. You'll figure out the rest. Or you won't. Either way, it's no longer my concern. Evelyn Rose Harper." P.S. The peach cobbler recipe is in the recipe box. Good luck finding the box. They told me later he screamed so loud the neighbors called the police. He tore the house apart looking for clues. He called every relative, every friend, every church member. He filed a missing persons report. He hired a private investigator. He even drove to Willow Creek Manor and tried to cancel the room, screaming that his mother had been kidnapped. The administrator told him the room had never actually been reserved because I'd called the week before and canceled it myself, using the confirmation number he'd so proudly texted me. He lost 20 pounds in 2 months, quit his job, started drinking the cooking sherry, sat in the dark in my daddy's old recliner, and talked to the walls like they might answer. One night, he found the Maxwell House can under the peonies, empty. He sat in the dirt and cried like the little boy who lost his mama at the county fair, because that's exactly what happened. I heard all this from Dolores, who still goes to the same beauty shop as Ashley's aunt. I never answered a single call, never read a single text, changed my number the day we crossed the North Carolina line. I did send one thing, 6 months later, a postcard from New Bern, picture of the waterfront at sunset. On the back, in my handwriting, the dumplings need a little more pepper than you think. Love. Mama. I heard he keeps it in his wallet. I heard he can't look at it without crying. Good. These days, I sit on my porch in Boone, drinking coffee strong enough to wake the dead, watching the mountains turn colors I didn't know existed. Dolores comes over most evenings and we play gin rummy and gossip about people who don't matter anymore. I planted daffodils last fall. They came up this spring like little yellow trumpets shouting that I'm still here, still alive, still me. And every time the phone rings and it's an unknown number, I let it go to voicemail because I already know what he'd say. Mom, please come home. And I already know what I'd say. Baby, I am home.
If you listened all the way to the end, drop a 1 in the comments. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button and maybe send a coffee my way. It helps more than you know. I've got a dozen more just like it waiting for you. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. See you in the next story.